Okay, we are live. Can everybody or whoever's out there, can you hear me? I have the headset on. Just want to make sure the headset's working. Give me a thumbs up if anyone can hear me. Otherwise, I'll have to play with this headset and make sure everything's working properly. Can you guys hear me? Am I coming through? What do you think, guys? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, good. All right, James or Gary. Oh, actually, there he is. Hold on one second. Hey, it's Gary. What's going on?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. I'm
Yeah, I
trying some
haven't.
new stuff.
Yeah, I haven't used a headset in a while, and sometimes I get mixed up with the volume and all that. All right, James probably be around in about another half hour or so. Usually he gets free around 9-ish. Gary, the way I titled it this time is Small Engine Electrical and Electronic Q&A, because Gary not only does small engine work in his side business, he's sort of an electronic guru, and everyone knows James from Mr. Generator and small engines and all that, but Gary is more of the, I'd say, electronic technical guy, when it comes to like the theory and things like that. Gary's the one you want to talk to. So
Of
a
course.
lot of people chatted in and sent me some messages saying they'd be here and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I know it's been a crazy week at regular work for me. I mean, it's just been a nutso week for us. And so I'm a little beat, but I look forward to these because I always learn something. One thing I learned today, not learned, I've probably known it for years, but I just forgot about it since grade school, is Lenz's law. Okay. For
Mhm.
magnetism. And I
Mhm.
never realized, it's been a while since I did stuff like that. You know that website Imaginables where they do all the different science
All the different
experiments,
setups,
stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were doing Lenz's law where they took a plastic tube and they took a rare earth magnet and they dropped it in. It was like really slow. Then they took like a
Yep.
metal slug and it fell right through. And everyone's like, how the hell does that happen? Well, magnetic fields, generating current and all that. People wonder, how do rotors and stators make amperage and electricity and all that? And
Mhm.
it's basically Lenz's law. So if you ever get a chance to look at LENZ, Lenz's law, just look up some of the videos that are on there and just if you do the test yourself, especially if you have kids, get a little BB or a ball bearing and then get a magnet and do it through the tube, they'll freak out. They'll be like, what the hell are you doing? So it's just kind of cool, how like Mr. Wizard stuff. So anyway, how's business been this week, Eric?
Yeah, it's just been just it goes.
Yeah,
It's been
that's
a
cool.
lot of it's just the day job keeps me busy too, but, got a couple writers coming in.
Yeah, anything with generators because of the season?
I had a couple of food truck generators come in. It was the Predator 9500, watt generator, the inverter generator that is
Ooh.
very popular in that industry.
Hmm.
I had one a while back that had the throttle control problem, and then I actually just had to swap out the inverter units, which are about $450.
How much is
They,
that whole unit? How much is the whole unit? One of those
about
things.
$2,300.
That's not bad for that size and inverter.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's one of those, machines where it's a much cheaper alternative than, getting a Honda, which, is a great unit, but it's also very expensive out of the box and then expensive to maintain. I know
Mm.
a lot of the food trucks, 3 different food trucks within the last month have, brought their machines in, and I've had to swap out the inverter units, but they were like 4 or 5 years old. They see a lot of heat, and they just need to be replaced at some point.
Hmm. We've got our friend Arch is up here, or in the comments anyway, and I know Arch is a guitar player, such as yourself. So I didn't know if he would. I told him, I said, hey, if you want to ask about amps and things, pedals or whatever, I know he's the guy. So most people, they when I say Gary, and then they go, what's the channel? They're expecting,
Yeah.
Amplifier 101 or Electronic 202 or whatever. I go, no, it's bass guitar 1985. And they're like, what the hell's that mean? So
It's
anyway.
the channel started that way, and then, it's just a dichotomy of things, but,
Hmm.
yeah,
Oh, we got a question already. What about the CO2? Does that have a CO2 indicator on that? I mean, the
it
carbon
does.
CO, not CO2,
A
CO.
CO, carbon
Yeah,
monoxide detector, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, there is a way you can bypass it, although it's not recommended, but it's more of an issue because if the food trucks keep them on the front of the machine of their trailers, or if it just happens to be in the path of the exhaust of the vehicle, for example, I know
Oh,
they
yeah, that's
tend
a good
to
point.
they tend to nuisance trip.
Now, we were talking a few times about the Furman generators that have those, and they had an
Yep.
issue with those, right? On the Furmans about kicking off the generators or something, bad board or bad sensor or something.
Yeah, it's the VFO, uh, board, and they shouldn't be you shouldn't have that problem now with the newer firms, but the old ones that did have that problem they would send you a new board, usually free of charge if it's still under warranty.
Hmm.
VFO stands for Variable
I
Frequency
mean,
Oscillator, which basically means it's monitoring the speed of the machine, and, it's just a capacitor, value change. That's all they really change, but it would nuisance shut it down.
yeah, it would drive you nuts. It would shut on, off, on, on. You're like, what's
Yeah,
going
and it
on?
can't run without it. It needs that board.
But
Everything's
that's what I'm saying. The
connected
way
together.
Furman has it, yeah, yeah, you have to. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Have you seen any more of these? The smaller ones comparable to the Hondas. I see a lot of the Champions, the smaller and Predator, the little like inverter, the small ones,
Yeah,
like
the
the
little suitcase
3000s.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I see a bunch of those around, and even
I
like
see
Westinghouse and all these other brands. These little Yamaha things like that.
Duramax.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen
Yep,
a lot
yep.
more. Yep.
A lot more of those. I mean, I haven't seen too many come across here. And hello to everyone down in Texas and,
Oh
Louisiana. I
yeah,
hope you guys are doing faring okay with the, hurricanes down there.
our friend
Um,
Dave Kernet. He's right in the middle of it in Baton
oh,
Rouge, that area. So he's
I
getting
got
hit. Yeah.
friends that work at PV Electronics. They're down in Meridian, Mississippi, so, hope you guys are doing okay too.
Yeah, John Clem too in Mississippi.
Yeah, well, that's right, in Mississippi, right, John?
Yeah, hopefully they won't get hit. But yeah, any questions you guys have? I know different guys were on our different channels saying we'll be here, we'll be here. And I know there's different guys here, but uh, like I said before, Gary, not only electronic, electrical, small engine, anything like that. Any kind of questions you have regarding that, just let us know. And I
Yeah,
try and get together with these guys with Gary and with James at least once a month. We try and do it once a month so we can get out
yeah,
there and yeah, we have a good time. And a lot of people will. The last question I got was during the live stream a week or so ago. Someone was saying, if you have a um, flywheel and a magnet comes unglued or something, it doesn't get destroyed. Can
yep.
you glue it back on? And I've done that successfully. You just have to make sure your north and south are correct.
Right, right. I remember, Carol
I think Wayne.
Fixes All did a
Yep.
good video on that. I actually probably have to watch that again a few times myself.
Mm.
And, and for when James gets on here, I know a lot of people are, jumping on here with James. We'll just moderate whatever questions you guys have in the comment
Mhm.
section, and, we'll let him go ahead and answer.
Oh, here's one. What do you think from Mr. Wayne?
Uh,
I thought you
well,
say 10:30, don't you here usually?
I mean, the older one, yeah. So the older ones do use 1030. I use 10W30 synthetic in my, older Generac, but, depending on what the manual says, I mean, once you've broken in the generator in the first 5 to 10 hours, it's good to run synthetic oil at that point. You're not going to be changing it in longer intervals necessarily, but, they usually recommend every 25 hours. I've heard guys go way longer than that, but, I just would go by what your, manual states.
But what do you think 5 versus, say, a 10W?
5W30 is a thinner oil. It's usually more used in the winter. It's more
Mhm.
like a snowblower, weight. But, a 10W30 is a multi-weight, so when it's up at operating temperature, it usually acts as a straight 30 when it's hotter out, and then it acts as a 5W30 when it's colder, having that,
Mm.
multi-weight viscosity, basically.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys in the wintertime, you said, especially with pull starts, it's easier to have the
Mhm.
5W30, especially if it's out in a
Yeah,
cold shed and all that.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
So, alright, cool. Yeah, now I have one generator guy tomorrow. I have tomorrow off and Monday off, so it's a long 5-day
Nice,
weekend for me. Yeah. Well, if I don't
nice.
use my vacation time, I lose it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got to
that's how
use
it
at
is at my
least two
job too.
days a month. Yeah. So anyway, I do have a champion coming tomorrow. Carburetor, simple, never drain the gas, that kind of thing. So,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
what I do is the fun thing is he's got a full tank of gas in this one of those about 7 gallon, I think, in a champion
Yeah, it's pretty
generator.
large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be my tractor fuel for the next 3 months because even if it smells a little bit, it'll still run in my John Deere tractor. So I don't care. To me, I'm getting 7 gallons of free fuel. So, and I charge the guy to get rid of it. So, anyway,
Yeah.
that's always fun. Oh, just on another subject, not to change the subject. When you getting the dog?
Oh, going for gotta think about this. Like, it's probably gonna be the first weekend of October.
Yeah,
They're going for their first, vet appointment on October 1st.
nice, cool. Let's see. Let's see if it putting an Amazon these. Well, James just did that last
Just
video.
James.
Yeah, on the Champion, and in fact, we had dinner that night, James and I, when he picked it up in Rhode Island. One of his customers donated that generator. He bought it brand new, and it never made power. And he gave it to James, and James, it was a cooked stator, and he
Mhm.
had a. It's just funny how in his shed or his storage unit, he just happened to have in the box, brand new set of a rotor stator. So yeah, that worked out okay. But diesel, as far as sipping the fuel, and I mean, I'd love to have a diesel generator like that one, even a small one, because you could probably run it for 2 or 3 days on $10 worth of fuel.
Yeah,
They
they're
really.
very fuel efficient.
Mm. And that thing was so old, meaning it was at least 10 years old, and he didn't change anything. He just hit the compression release, and boom, that thing was
Yeah,
off. So that was pretty
it's
cool.
not hydrophilic, like gasoline is, so
Mm,
the fuel's gonna store much better.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, I listen to like Diesel Creek and some of these other channels I watch, and
Mhm.
the diesel's been in it for 27 years, and it runs. As long as the moisture filters keep the water out, it
Yep.
runs. So,
Mhm.
anywho, what else? I'm trying to think what else electrical. We've had issues at work with linear scales, tape scales, like Heidenhain tape
Yep.
scales, things like that.
Yep.
Oh, just a little bit of dirt, this and that. What a nightmare! Oh my gosh, that my whole week was about linear scale issues. It was just, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wow.
Yeah, it's just crazy week. I got guys coming in tomorrow, and of course, I'm not in, so I have to assign my guys to work with them. And people don't realize, they see you and I on doing this stuff and all that. Gary and I mean, we work 40, 50, 60 hours a week besides this. This is the sideline, the fun thing. And Gary has his all other business where he does the electronic repair, small engine repair, working for other companies doing different things with electronics. So between us, there's a lot of hours that we just don't have, and
Yep.
we have to make do with what we have. So a lot of guys will say, oh, why don't you do this like full time? I can't. I just can't. Hey, we
No,
got
I wouldn't want
celeb
to do it full time.
no, no. Celebrity. Hey, Scott, how you doing? Greasy Shop Right. Another good channel. Anybody that wants to do that, uh, put the link out there if Scott wants to come up and say hello. Another good channel. Let's see. Where's the link? Oop,
Give me just a moment, guys.
yep. And that
I don't
those that
think,
what's that?
I was trying to get, this to stream to my channel as well, but I don't know what,
How do you do that? I mean, I know mine automatically does it because I'm the host. I just don't know.
it says you can stream. I'm gonna try that real quick just so we can get, more a broader audience. I know if Ja
Oh, he hit the wrong key. That's okay. As a oh, there we go. He's back. Wait a minute. Yeah,
sorry
I
about
know. I know. I have a box where I can click and toggle back and forth as a moderator. I don't know what you have
mhm.
on yours.
I think I have the same ones, but, I
Yeah,
could choose
'cause-
the destination of where it goes.
oh, okay.
That's what I'm gonna do real quick.
Yeah, Stella, lawnmower lady. She's my co-host in the Streamyard settings. So if Stella ever came on, she could do everything I can do as far as being a moderator. You're on panel, but you're not a moderator in that regard. So you're probably limited as to what you can do.
Yep.
Oh, excuse me. So, what's Wayne saying again? Fuck. We use the well, your weather up there, Wayne. You get cold, cold,
You need
cold
it.
up there.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep, definitely. Yeah. In fact, Wayne, you'd be getting snow, what, another month or so? 2 months, maybe? I know
So
Brucey out above the Dakotas, September, October, he gets snow.
he gets a
So,
lot there, yeah.
yeah.
There goes.
Uh, yeah, James just said it'll be on around 9. Okay, that's cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, whatever the manual says. But it's weird. You look in the manual though, that thing will tell you the grades all the way from 0W30 up to 2050. Depending on the weather. It's all based on temperature. And the problem is, you change the oil when it's 80 degrees out. And it's a nice summer day, but then you don't
Yep.
use it until it's 10 degrees out.
Yeah, you can forget about it.
Exactly. Yeah. But the important thing, though, you were saying too, 25 hours is usually the recommended time interval to change. And I know so many people when the power's out for 4 days, they ain't shutting it off.
No, and a lot of guys will run it like that. There's a group on a Facebook group that where, guys have run 50, 75 hours even for 2 weeks straight,
Yeah.
literally just putting more and more fuel in it, and the generators have done fine, which quite surprising for me, but, because that's what I've always been told, to do it every 25, maybe 50 hours if you're on synthetic, but sometimes you have to keep the lights on, keep the refrigerators going.
Yeah.
For them down there, it's keeping the central air system running because it's hot. Up here in, Connecticut, it's kind of a luxury to have the central air, so it's not something that you need.
Well,
Um,
not now with
yeah.
this deregulation, though. I'm having second thoughts about what I'm going to do. I mean, just it cost me an extra. Say, you've seen my house, a little teeny 1,000 foot warehouse. It cost me
Hmm.
$300 a month for the central
Oh,
air
that's nothing. So I have
for a
a so
thousand square feet. I mean,
Well, I'll do
that's
more than double that. So for the
yeah.
month of July, and we ran the central air. We have a 2,500 square foot house, and
Mhm.
we're running the central air probably 60, 70 hours. I'd have to look, but 4 refrigerators and everything, $605, and $162 were public benefits.
Oh yeah,
So that's
it's all
basically
about yeah,
us paying
exactly,
other people to have free power.
exactly.
It's
Yep.
ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Don't move to Connecticut, whoever's watching.
Oh yeah. Well, we call it the taxi to death state, and it's true. So there's
Taxi of the
always
death or the welfare state,
yeah, pretty much. That's why people come
but
here.
it's home, so can't
Yeah.
really complain
Uh,
too much.
yeah, fossilized fuel. That's true too. Most people, well, like I said, now's the time of year when people want to get their mower serviced, they want to get their leaf blowers, their chainsaws, they want to get everything done. And I don't know about you, Gary, but I've been saying no the past month only because over the past year I've let myself get so backed up that I can't keep up. And I have people that are pissed off with like chainsaw full rebuilds they want me to do. It's been on my bench for a year, and they're like,
Oh,
I know
wow.
that they have other saws and things like that, but it's like I get pissed too because I really want to complete all that stuff, but then I have no time for regular customers, no time for my stuff, and you know,
Yeah.
I've just been saying no, literally to almost everybody for about
Yeah.
the past 3 or 4 weeks because I just don't have the time. I don't, and
Well,
every single day off, like these next 5 days, that's all I'm going to be doing is stuff like
I
that.
get it.
Oh
There's a work to life balance, there's a
yeah,
lot of time a lot of that smaller work, I won't even take. I mean,
yeah.
my wife and I, we got plenty of stuff to do.
I will not do lately. I will not do the cheap eager beavers and the cheap Poulon and stuff like that. Even if I
Yeah.
know it's quick money or something, unless he comes in, hey, I need a pull cord. That's easy money, quick, easy money, things like that. But if it's like, oh, I don't know why it's not working, I just, no, I don't have time. I just don't have time. All right, what's Mr.
Yeah.
Martin say here? Thanks for all the videos. I have a Westinghouse EcoGen 10,000 gas portable generator, live in Maine, exercising it. What do you think, Garrett? How often should he run it?
I mean, if you keep fuel in it, I would definitely exercise it either once a week or once every other week.
Would
Just
you
run it for, like,
recommend the Aspen fuel though, or something like that? The alkylate fuel if he's just going to keep it in there and not use it?
yeah, but I mean, a 10,000-watt generator is gonna have a very big fuel tank.
Yeah.
Uh, you don't want, unless you can drain it out, effectively and then use it for your tractor or some other equipment,
But the Aspen will
definitely.
last 2 years. The alkylate fuel.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the
I
worst
love
case
that stuff.
scenario, I love it too. It's expensive, but
Yep. Yep.
it's worth having, but at least, uh, the worst that happens is that it evaporates away, but it doesn't leave that nasty residue,
Well,
and it's not hydrophilic.
do you recommend, say it's got a 10-gallon tank? Would
Mhm.
you rather keep tanks full, half empty, stabilized, alkylate? What for a tank on a generator if you're not going to use it that often? What would you
Empty,
do with it? Empty. Oh,
empty,
okay. All right.
empty. It is better.
Even if it's stored outside with hot, cold, and all that.
Nope. So, and I know we've talked about this in the past, but stabilizers are snake oil. I do not.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't used them in well over 10, 12 years. I
yeah,
learned after Hurricane Sandy that it wasn't worth putting the stabilizers in because the stabilizers don't prevent the ethanol from being hydrophilic, meaning that it
yeah.
absorbs
Dry
moisture in the
water.
air. The stabilizers do prevent phase separation, so the
Yeah,
gasoline and the ethanol is blended,
yeah,
and the stabilizers prevent that from separating. But that's not your number one enemy. Your number one enemy is moisture,
yeah, yeah.
and eventually the fuel just goes bad, and the octane is breaking down as well.
Hmm.
Uh, if you're going to store a generator, a gasoline generator, store it empty. Just
Okay.
run it dry. Use the fuel for something else because you're just going to wind up causing problems.
1 liter of kinetics alkylate. Yeah, and like I said, normally 2 years. I would just be afraid though of the air that's above that 1 liter in a 7 gallon tank that you might get with hot colds condensation. That's all.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And to your point with keeping a fuel tank filled all the way, yes, because there's less airspace.
Mm.
But again, that's a lot of fuel
Yeah, it's
to,
a hundred
to
dollars worth of
store.
fuel when you're talking alkylate. Yeah,
Stored, and it just doesn't store very well. It's
yeah.
either that or convert it to propane. I mean, I know there's a lot of generators out there now that are coming from the factory, dual fuel. Some of them tri-fuel, but most of them are dual fuel now. It's if gasoline's not available, use propane. Propane
What do you
stores almost
use in yours,
indefinitely.
Gare? What do you use in yours?
On I have a tri-fuel kit, so I can either use gasoline, propane, natural gas, but it's not
But
available in my
propane's
area.
a lot less efficient though per dollar for dollar per BTU, isn't it? Or
It's less BTUs, and you have to burn more of it to get the same output, but
yeah.
the trade-off is that you get better storage capability.
Okay, yeah. Do you have a large tank for your propane to use that, or it's just small?
Yeah, I have two 100-pound tanks that each hold about 24 gallons of propane each.
Do you use that for appliances in the house as well, or just for generators?
Yeah, we just have a propane fireplace, so we usually swap the two.
Yep, yep.
So I keep one next, nearby, and
Mm,
it's like 70 or $75 to fill, which if
yeah,
you're
my mother
fif-
has that, the propane insert, and, actually, she heats most of her ranch with
yeah,
that in the winter.
the main we have a colonial, and then the main floor pretty much is taken care of with that fireplace during the winter. It's great, and it's we have the two tanks, and that usually gets us through the entire winter. And of course, if we had to uh, fill it up over at the hardware store, it's not a big deal. For those guys that have this what do they call them, the ASME tanks, the stationary ones,
Yep,
where the truck comes to your house and they
yeah.
deliver the
That's what
propane.
my mom's
If
got,
you
yeah, yep.
if you lock it in early enough and it's a good price, then you get a less per gallon. Usually with the DOT tanks, or basically the large grill tank,
Mhm.
those are a little bit more costly per gallon to fill up. But how often do we lose power? Not often.
Yeah, my mom, like I said, she's got I think the tank, it's about 2.5 foot diameter, about 4.5 feet long. Is that 100 gallon?
I think a 60.
Like, okay,
I think
but
there used to be a 60-gallon here.
yeah, I think she uses one of those in a season, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, no, it's not bad at all. And if we had other appliances that were propane, we probably would get the big potbelly pig tanks. Like they're
Yeah.
like 250, 300 pounds each. Get two of those, and that would be more than plenty because that's where a lot of our neighbors use. But we're fuel oil for heat and forced hot air. Not exactly a fan of forced hot air, but it's what we got.
Yeah. Well, the
But
forced
yeah,
hot air, it's nice and warm, then it's cold. It's.
yeah,
I've got the baseboard hydronic, so it's
I
a
love
lot more
that.
consistent. Yeah. What's Wayne talking about using natural gas? Have you ever worked on a generator that was on natural gas?
I have, yes, but I haven't been able to test it on natural gas. But
Uh,
the equipment is still the same. You're but the fittings are different.
Yeah, I had one customer call me out. He had an old Kohler generator in his backyard, literally 200 feet from his house, hooked
Yep.
up to the natural gas. And I was just amazed that when I dropped well, they say carburetor, it's really just a mixer. It's not really a carburetor, right? Because it's a natural gas, but no dirt, no nothing. I mean, perfectly clean. Hadn't used it in years. And we
Yeah.
fired it up and it fired like right up. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't get propane or natural gas to run dirty enough in a converted gasoline engine.
Hmm.
And when I say converted gasoline engine because a gasoline engine that's meant for gasoline can run on propane and natural gas, as we know, but there's less efficiency, as we
Mm,
talked about. To get a dedicated propane or natural gas engine, you see those in the standby generators,
mm,
and those have much higher compression. They have different advanced timing. They're outfitted for those gaseous fuels specifically. They don't run on gasoline,
mm.
but then you get more output out of them.
Now, we had talked one time before about you at that company you deal with that makes the conversion kits, and we were
Yes.
saying about how um, it's rich versus lean is opposite when you're running it on gas versus
Yeah.
gasoline. You want to explain that?
Yeah, so it's at when you're running a gasoline engine, the leaner air and fuel mixtures cause higher combustion temperatures. And then if you're running it rich, meaning more fuel than air, the liquid fuel is actually, as it hits the hot metal, actually cools the combustion temperatures. With gaseous fuels, because it's not liquid to begin with, the leaner is better. So the leaner means cooler combustion temperatures. If you put too much, uh, if it's too rich of a mixture, it actually increases the exhaust temperatures, because propane doesn't and natural gas don't burn as quickly as gasoline does. It's got a higher flash point, meaning a higher temperature for it to ignite versus gasoline. So it's still burning. If you give it too much fuel, it's still burning in the exhaust, and that's where you get the cherry
Uh,
red uh, mufflers a lot of times. So,
mm,
and that's where you can cause damage to the cylinder head too. So, the leaner is better with propane, and
mm,
most of the ones that are coming as dual fuel already have those settings preset from the factory. When you buy the conversion kit, yeah, you have to adjust the load mixture block on the top of it. Check it out at different lows. Make sure everything's stable, and once it's set, then you set it and you're done.
Now, what about you had talked another time about the importance of the regulator because of the pressure, the very, very low pressure in what
Mhm.
water column on
Yeah.
a propane or a natural gas versus gasoline. I know there were some were there recalls or something? I know you and James were talking one time about having to buy a different regulator because they would go bad over time, the diaphragms or something.
Yeah, they get stiff or they get rotted out. I mean, some of them weren't probably set from the factory to begin with correctly,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Now, what's the PSI of say propane or natural gas going into one of those generators?
uh, let's
Is
see.
it like 1 inch of water? I mean, what are we talking?
I think it's 14 inches of water column
Which is like
for
what, point
propane.
0.2 PSI or something? It's not that
Yeah,
much.
it's very,
Yeah.
very low. It's not the pressure that's important, it's the volume of
Flow.
gas. So,
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
you hear a lot of I hear a lot of the where guys are take from their meters or from their tanks running to the generator, they have a half-inch line that comes standard. Well, the further you go beyond 10 feet, you're gonna need to, increase the diameter of that line.
Uh,
And if you're running, say, 50 feet, you're gonna probably need a 3/4 to 1-inch line for usually propane or natural gas. There's actually a calculator on US Carburation that you can figure all that out, but the more volume you're going to need at full load, and that's
mm,
how they rate your lines to make sure you have enough flow and enough volume of gas to run that engine. They usually go by BTUs per hour, but I've seen a lot of guys where they don't have a big enough. They can get it running, they can get it started, and maybe half a load, but then it starts to stumble,
mm,
and that's where they run into problems because the line's not large enough.
mhm. All right. Looks like
Um,
James
what
is
was
in
up?
the basement. Hello,
What have you heard?
James. What's going on?
Hey Ken. Hey Gary. How you
Hey,
doing?
how you doing, guys?
Thanks for joining.
We have Mr. Generator here.
Here we go.
It's been a while. So what did I miss? You guys started already.
A lot of discussion on natural gas and propane and advantages, disadvantages, things like that. Basically, and oil. You know what, 5W versus 10W, weather, things like that. And our friends, Mr. Clem and Mr. Kernet, who are down in Mississippi and down in Louisiana fighting the hurricane. We're hoping that they're making out okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So,
We're supposed
a
to get a
lot,
lot of rain.
lot
mm.
of rain.
Yep.
Not
Things
necessarily a
start.
lot of wind.
Yeah.
Uh, how's that diesel going, James? Have you run it at all or what? I mean, I know you tested it, but any?
Yeah, just the test. It's funny. After I ran it, just everything stunk of diesel for about an hour
Uh,
inside the garage.
I'm just
It was pretty
curious.
strong.
Say a test of a quart of diesel. how long will it actually run for? Just to get the number. So if anyone asked, hey, if I bought, or someone came on here earlier and said, I'd love to see one of you guys convert, say, a regular generator to an Amazon.com, diesel engine,
Yeah.
and see. I'm
Do they
curious
have one?
because Amazon does sell, I think, more on Alibaba and Temu than you'll see on Amazon. But I saw
Yeah.
one the other day for $69, a
Oh,
diesel
Yeah.
wow.
6.5 horsepower, and I was like, "What, are they giving it away?" It seems like they are. But to
Wow.
convert it, how would you get the right taper shaft and all that stuff? But
Well,
still, I'm just curious with diesel generators, if you put in, say, a quart of diesel, how
yeah.
many minutes, hours would you get versus gasoline? And I mean, I'm hearing it's like 4 or 5 times the
Jeez.
burn rate,
Yeah,
so
I was wondering the same because the tank on that diesel is really small. Like
hmm,
it's got to be like a 3-gallon tank,
Yeah.
yep.
if
Very
that.
fuel efficient.
Yeah.
My friend came over one time in his John Deere, I think it was a 750 or 850, and he had like a 10-gallon diesel tank. He ran that thing for 3 days and never
Yeah.
put fuel in it. I mean, 3 8-hour days. And I'm like, is this thing using fuel? And it was just
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. I mean,
And
no
the good
wonder
thing
the
is
big
too,
rate increase.
you don't have a carburetor to go bad. You don't have
Yeah.
fuel to go bad, really.
No. Hmm.
So it's nice. Like that fuel in the tank could have been the same fuel the guy put in 13 years ago
Well, look at Diesel
when he
Creek and
first
those
started
guys,
it.
30, 40, 50-year-old fuel. And except
Yep.
as long as the water's gone, they can, start right up. Yeah.
Can they separate the water out of the diesel? I would think
Well,
they
I'm saying a
could.
lot of the bigger engines have the water separators.
Separators. Yep.
But as far as I don't know, yeah, how would you actually do it if in a situation like yours, Jim? If you have a tank of diesel, say 6, 7, or 5 gallons that's been sitting for 10 years, you'd have to probably buy, a Mr. Funnel or something to get the water out, right? I mean, there's no other
Well, yeah, I don't know actually.
because it's
Does
not pressurized,
water
right? Well, there is no, there is a pump. There is a pump because the diesel gets
There is,
pumped in, but
but
yeah.
does water separate in diesel like it does in gasoline?
I don't think they
Well,
mix, to be honest.
yeah,
I
but
think
is
they
it is it
actually.
Okay.
just a is it just a coalescing filter that they use? I mean, anyone who's a diesel mechanic out there, if you could
Well,
answer.
usually it's a fuel filter and it just stays in the bottom of the fuel filter. A lot of times they have a petcock on the bottom
But
to
I thought they use
drain.
coalescers too with the micron element rating, so that the
Ah,
more water will go to a different chamber in the element or something. I don't know. Whoever, if there's any
possibly,
diesel
yeah. On
mechanics
some,
out there, yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, I'd be
but
curious about that because I've seen that
yeah,
even on the boats, like they have a
no paper in
centrifugal
here.
separator where it spins at a pretty fast speed before it goes into the engine to separate out any
mhm.
contaminants like water.
Interesting. Yeah, inline. But say an inline though would be more of a coalescer, where the micron rating of the actual element would push it. Not let it go through or push it to a different chamber in the
Hmm.
filter. Yeah. Hey, Tom's here. Hello, Tom. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think we have any of our friends from the UK here because it's like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. So
Yeah,
I,
it's a
I
little
feel
late.
bad every time we go on late, but I tell the guys, just ask questions. I'll throw in the chat and we'll see what we can. And anyone that's out there now or watching this on replay, feel free to put questions, whether you're watching Gary's channel, my channel, or James's channel. Put the questions in the comments, and over the next week or even 2 or 3, we will get the questions answered. I mean, we do look at the stuff. I do look at it every day, and if someone asks me a question, I forward it to these two guys, and we generally get someone an answer regardless. So it doesn't have to be right now, but if you see this after the fact, yeah, ask the questions. I mean, we got 53 in the house, which is good. I mean, that's a good rating, and so we got a lot of people watching.
I actually got they put a comment on the last stream that we did, Ken.
Hmm.
The question, I don't know if we can even put it on the screen, but the question was from a JAAWW7549.
I
It
thought,
says,
didn't
"Do
we
you?"
answer that?
I don't see an answer on it. It says, "Do you know where to buy the JST connectors on both ends of the ESC
Yeah.
cable that connects to the throttle stepper motor with the inverter board of a Honda EU 2000 or a 2200?" That's one of the suitcase generators we were talking about.
Hmm.
Well, I did find a few of those on Amazon. You'd have to look at the connector, but they give you. There's actually a couple kits. I'll see if I could post a link there, but I didn't want
Now,
to forget that
going
one.
going through like Newark or someone, or where would you get the connectors from?
You can, well, I mean, they have, I found a few on Amazon. They actually have the raw wires and then
Oh,
the
okay.
actual Molex connectors. They're
Oh,
usually one and
Molex
a
then.
half.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
They look like Molex, but they're JST, they're called, and they're
Mm,
about 1.5 millimeters space between the pins, basically.
yep.
But that's the connector they use for the stepper motor that
Yeah.
operates the automatic throttle. And actually, it was something I researched before we jumped on. I was actually interested because, those it's good to have spare parts. So I learned something from him.
Now, the stepper motor with the throttle, is that more on the contractor type one where you're not using it all the time, or is that, I know the smaller ones, right? Don't the smaller EUs always use the stepper motor to control the throttle,
The
or what?
The
inverter generators always do.
Okay.
They always do,
You know,
yeah. They
and
have to.
the
No matter the
but
rating, or
correct, yeah, because it's not trying to maintain a set speed. The
Mhm.
It
computer's
doesn't have
controlling the
to.
speed based
Yep.
on load.
Mm.
And the bigger, nicer generators have stepper motors too, so you don't get
Yeah.
that governor droop.
Yeah. Usually the mechanical governor on some of the large, like say 10,000 watt generators with dual cylinder, they'll have a mechanical governor, but then they'll also have a stepper motor that keeps the tolerance so it stay from, it's 60 hertz, right? But if it's a mechanical governor, it'll droop down to 58 hertz at full load.
Mm.
You might have it running unloaded at about 62, maybe 63 hertz. Well, the stepper motor will keep it within like 2% of 60 hertz, where it's very little deviation. But there's usually a separate board that controls that.
Okay, yeah, Larry's saying the water will go to the bottom, so you could either have
Yeah,
another petcock or something. Okay,
Yep.
that's cool. Thanks.
yeah. You could probably just crack the lines too,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, here's. Do you put like dielectric grease in those connectors?
Yeah, that's to keep them sealed from the elements. Yeah, so they don't corrode. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, water in the fuel. I'll see if I can show you guys a quick picture. I had a generator recently.
What does this mean here? Diesels will wet stack.
Wet stack, yeah. That is if they're not loaded. Oh, sorry. That's I don't know if you can how well you can see it, but that's from a Generac generator. You see the water at the bottom,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and probably have like a half a gallon of water in it.
Okay. But
Yeah,
what's wet stacking? What is that?
wet stacking. So diesels are there's no spark plug. It runs on compression
Compression.
only. So wet stacking means that you're getting unburned diesel fuel in the combustion chamber unless you're getting it up to higher temperatures for it to
Oh, okay.
burn completely. So wet
Yeah.
stacking, it means that you have to run it at least 50% load or more. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of that black smoke, and then it's just going to build up in
Yeah.
the engine. It's not
Will
good
it
for it.
hydraulic eventually or no? Will it like
Mm,
lock up or anything? I mean, because it runs on compression, so the more the better.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
I
no,
mean,
it's just you're going to get a lot of carbon buildup inside.
Okay.
right. The carbon buildup's going to cause problems,
Mm.
especially if you
Yep.
have
Like, will that cause
like a
like run
turbo or
will cause
something.
run on or something in a diesel then maybe from like pre-ignition from keeping it hot in there or anything like that? I don't know enough about diesels to be honest.
Yeah.
No.
Nor me. I don't work on many, but I've heard that's a big problem, especially with like RV generators, where a lot of them are diesel generators, but the
Yeah.
people run them. They don't
Run them
put
fully
much of a
loaded.
load on it,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
they definitely wet stack and have issues
Yeah.
just due to
Well,
running with practically no load.
yeah, or they run too intermittently. That
Yeah.
if it's only like say 30% duty cycle for like an air conditioning, for example, or it could be more than that. But if they're not running a constant load, yeah, there's always a trade off.
Mm. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to if you did that test, Jim. Just put a liter in or a quart and see how many minutes it takes or hours or whatever. Just be
It,
curious.
it's too late. It's gone.
Get out!
Oh,
You sold it?
really?
No, I didn't sell it, but my buddy Jason picked it up. He sells it for me. But
Uh,
he hasn't.
I-
He actually got. It's funny. I've never worked on a diesel until a couple weeks ago. He picked one up from the dump. So he sent me a picture while I was working on this
wow.
diesel of another diesel. I think it's the same engine, much worse condition. I mean, it was clearly left outside.
Another champion?
No, this one was a different brand. The one I worked on was a Doro Star. Actually,
Oh, okay, Durastar. That's right. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, I want to say, oops, sorry. Dropped the microphone.
Let's see.
I'll pull the picture up. I want to say it's some like off-brand Chinese.
Wow, look at that. The whole thing had to be baked out. Wow, from running.
Yeah, they literally take like a flamethrower just to burn the
Yeah,
carbon out.
I never heard of that term before, and I learned something.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
interesting. What was it? Hydrogen bubbler. Huh. Oh, what, to maybe atomize it or something?
Oh, it's a Titan.
Oh,
Okay.
It's not a good picture, but I'll eventually be doing a video on that. I don't have it yet, but I think it's the same engine. Definitely a different generator. It kind of looks more like a Winco generator on there.
Interesting.
Those are built very well too.
Yeah, it looks a lot like, you remember those 4 generators I got that they all had broken carburetors? Those, I found out later, those generators are all made by Winco, which is good because they actually were all low THD.
Yep.
The bad thing is one of them was brushed, and thankfully the brushes were okay, but a couple people wrote to me asking where can I get the brushes because they're a very unique design and they don't make them anymore.
Oh, because Winco
wow.
was huge. Winco made generator
huge.
attachments for tractors and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still popular even today. I mean, they're some of the best power heads ever made.
They are
in the market. Yeah,
they're they're made well, but they're made to last, and the THD on the ones I've tested have been pretty good. They're not cheap either. You pay for it. It's probably made out of copper instead of aluminum.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard of this Power G generator? That brand, I know it's Canadian, Wayne's up in Canada, but he's trying to find the recoil for it, and the distance between the holes, the centers, it's a weird number, like 5 3/4. And I've never heard of Power G. We talked about Honda clones and Chinesium clones and all that, but I just never heard of that brand. Wayne, if you want to post, is there a model number on that generator?
Yeah, it looks this generator goes by many names. This one's a weird one too, because the carburetor looks like a Mikuni clone.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a Honda clone. It might be a Yamaha clone.
Usually the Mikuni, though, doesn't it have that extra pink vent hose or something? That extra hose usually on the end, like the overflow hose, vent hose.
I mean, some of them do. The Mikunis, though, most of them have that really thin drain screw on the bottom that usually breaks off.
Yeah.
So if you don't use it, it's so small you can't break it free without breaking it. But I would actually, I don't know offhand what that's a clone of. It's probably like an MZ, could be an MZ80, but I think it's a little bigger than that.
I know when I was working with a generator with Mick, he had whatever brand it was. It was Yamaha. We ended up cross-referencing a part to a Yamaha outboard motor engine to use on the generator, because the generator parts had no longer available, but the same diaphragm kit or whatever it was available on an outboard motor from Yamaha. Exact same carburetor, but used in an outboard versus used on a generator. It's weird. Yeah. But Yamaha, Kawi, expensive parts.
They are, but thankfully there's clones.
Yep.
I'm working on one right now. It's actually a what is it? Sportsman.
Yep.
And it's a Sportsman inverter, but it's a clone of a Yamaha MZ80. Like, as far as I can tell, it looks exactly the same. And I'm kind of counting on it because I just ordered some Yamaha parts.
What's the wattage on that? How big is it?
It's 2,000, I think, surge, probably 16 or 1,800 running.
Looks good.
But I can't get the generator off. It needs a special puller. It's like a motorcycle puller, but it's not even like a normal one. It's like an inverse. So it actually, you need a puller that pushes a female thread, instead of most motorcycle pullers are like a male thread, and then you spin the thing in. Actually, I got a puller right here. I can't tell you how many pullers I've ordered, and none of them fit.
You got to call Vivor, get your free lathe, and make your own, Jim.
Yeah. So it screws right on, and then it pushes it off. But the thing is, the threads are so far in there, I can't get a caliper in to measure it accurately. So all I know is it's a 1.5 millimeter pitch. And I thought it was a 27 or a 26, so I ordered both. 26, too small. 27, way too big.
Oh,
So
oh,
someone's lying. One of those pullers isn't right.
let's see. Yeah, because that's just over 1 inch, not much.
Good size.
Interesting.
Oh, let me
Yeah,
get the recoil out. I have a recoil for an
yeah.
MZ80. I'm curious to see
I'm
what
just
it
curious.
is.
You're sure it's definitely 1.5 pitch?
Yeah, that I'm sure of because I can get the little gauge in there
Yeah.
to measure it. It's just the threads, or sorry, the diameter. The major diameter seems to be 26.5, but I can't get the caliper on there straight. So it might be a little smaller.
Hmm. Hmm.
Interesting. Pete has EM500 came up.
Because James, just for the hell of it, there is such a thread called a 1-inch 16.
1-inch 16. What's that?
Yeah, which is 25.4 diameter with a 1.5 millimeter or 16 pitch.
Are you serious?
There is that thread. I looked it up.
Well, I might have to resort to that because I don't know. I'm just going to keep ordering pullers until one of them fits, but
Yeah,
You'll
it's
have
going to
plenty
be
of
sitting
tools
there
if
for a
they're.
long time
yeah.
because it's.
There is a 1-inch 16 thread.
Send me that one.
Yep. No, because I did the math, like you were saying, because 1 inch is 25.4, and you're saying around 26, and then you're saying 1.5 pitch, which is 60,000, which is 1/16. That's 1 inch 16, and I mean, it sounds odd because it's all metric, but who knows, you know?
Hey Ken, go ahead and put them on the full screen. I want to check that out there.
This is the generator end. It's magnets right here.
Oh wow.
So normally I would just hit the crankshaft and pop it off, but if I do that, there's a good chance I'm going to damage the magnets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
they're
need
very
a
brittle.
puller, and the thread is right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
okay, so you want to load off of that. Okay, I got you.
Right, and then push on the middle.
Push on that, yeah. I don't know, James. I think you need a Vevor free lathe to your channel and start making your own stuff.
I know.
Hey, our friend in Australia loves his. They sent him a lathe. He's been making all kinds of crap. They sent him a TIG welder. He's making all kinds of crap, you know.
He's using
If
it
you
a
have
lot.
James, if you have a tap and die set there, and if you can lay some of the taps on top of those threads and see if it's a 1.5 pitch, you might be able to measure on the out. You have digital calipers to measure.
I do. The problem is,
see if the 16 pitch gauge will fit, because I know 1.5 is roughly a 16th. See if a 16,
I'll check it. But this is a Yamaha clone made in China.
No, agreed. But I'm just saying, since 1 inch 16 is available, I mean,
we run into these issues. We're going to run into these kinds of issues all the time. I mean, my digital mic, just for perspective, digital microscope that I have to mount on this boom arm that I have here is a 5/8. It's
18?
it's a 5/8 27.
Wow.
No, it's a 5/8 28. 28 thread.
Yeah.
But then the thread on the mount for the microscope is an M15.
Well, instrument
27.
threads, instrument threads are a lot different. Yeah,
they are different. But the 27 thread and the 28 thread, just because there's no adapter, there's no female to female adapter, and what wound up happening was there's enough of an interference fit where it mounts just right, where I can use the boom arm if I don't want to use the platform.
It's a 1/827 regular pipe thread.
It is a 5/8.
5/8. Okay.
It's a 5/8 27 for the boom arm, but then a 5/8. I'm sorry, it's an M15 28 for the arm that hooks up to the microscope.
Because I know when we have a lot of our lab equipment at work, it is funky threads, all different kinds.
Yeah, I ran into that, and actually the company Tom Love was very nice to me. They were able to help me out with the checking what the adapter would fit, and they were able to tell me the pitch of the thread, so I made it work.
I know you go on like Fisher Scientific or some of these scientific websites, they'll tell you all the different threads for all their different,
Yeah.
stands and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even though that like they're based in China, but the support team was really good. I've had really good luck working with companies over in China.
Mm. I'm just curious, Jim, if a 1 in 16 will work, because they got a
It
1 in
might.
16 tap on Amazon for $23, and you can make your own.
It might. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have to order a few more things here because it's getting to the point where it's been in the corner now for a month.
Mm-hmm.
I can't proceed. Like it needs the cylinder needs to be honed. I think the rings are stuck. So I
Oh.
have to get the piston out. I mean, there's just no way around it. But the cylinder's also damaged. There was water in there. There's pitting.
Oh.
So
Have you been soaking it?
No, it moves.
Oh, okay.
No, it moves. Actually,
so
someone.
the rings may be damaged or something.
Yeah, I mean, it won't run. And if you put oil down it, it'll try to, it'll kick a little bit, but it won't run. It's just not enough. Severe leak down. I think it was like 80%.
Not sealing.
All right, what's Mr. Phelps here saying? Could you all discuss the risk of using a conventional portable generator for home backup instead of an inverter generator? I have both and have never had a problem with damage to electronics. You're lucky.
Yeah.
There was another comment before we go too far into there was someone else that had what is it? His name here. His name is
About.
No, he had an EM500. If anyone
here,
was
Peter.
looking to collect it,
Peter.
There it is. I didn't want to forget him here. I saw that it was coming through.
500. That's a small one. That's in like James territory. He likes those tiny ones. Jim, what was that the real small one you had? Was it 100 or something? Didn't you have a real tiny one?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, look at the size of that thing. Tiny. Yeah, it's like it's like a light plant or something. Like what do you
just for perspective? That's the size of my hand.
Yeah. And is it 50 watt or 100 watt? What was it?
Oh no, it's far worse than that. It's
what, 25?
There's a leg 1 and leg 2. Each leg is 20 watts.
Wow. Yeah, a couple of light bulbs.
200 hertz.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that the other day, like planes running at like 400 hertz or 600 hertz. Yeah,
and you can run them in parallel. They actually sold an adapter, so if you wanted the full power of 40 watts, you had to plug in a special adapter to put them in parallel.
Interesting. Rick from Australia. Hi, Rick.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to that one. Hold on, let me put that back up.
Yeah, how much was that EM500? If it's in good condition, I see them going on eBay too for like. People are asking $500 for EM500s, yeah, which
they're collectible.
Is a lot. They are collectible. I actually bought one. Not that I need one because I already have one, but this one was on eBay. I think I got it for like $130. Looks mint. Kind of down there in the corner. I'm like, I don't need another generator, but it's such a good price. If it's gonna sell for that price, I'm buying it.
Yeah. Yeah, really camping for like a lamp or light or.
Yeah, you can't run much because of the hertz. You could run a light.
Well, you could probably power a little charging station for your phones and things. Or,
maybe.
I mean, how many watts does it take to charge a phone?
Probably like 10 watts.
Yeah. I bought one of those Archer 120 watt or something. It's like a real powerful power station. Charges my phone in like 9 minutes. It's really wild. And it says it won't overcharge it or won't kill the battery. I don't know. I trust them, but who knows?
Does it get hot?
Not really, but the Archer is like a good brand when it comes to that stuff. The Archer power supplies and things.
Yeah, 40 watts. It's more a I want to say an oddity. A collector's item.
When I think 40 watts, I think the Christmas tree stands in the winter with the little lights, hanging out.
It couldn't even do that. I mean, one set of traditional.
That's right. Yeah, incandescent. Yeah, incandescent. That's what 200-300 watt in one string.
Yep.
Yeah. One string of incandescent lights is easily 200 watts.
Hey, Craig, how you doing, brother?
Well, to get back to G. Phelps' question, I mean, there a lot of the conventional generators. It depends on what you get. Some of the less expensive ones are not going to have the best built power heads. and the total harmonic distortion will get to be a little too high for most electronics. But it's not total harmonic distortion, without getting technical with that, because I know we've talked about that in the past. That's not your biggest risk. It's the surge. It's if you have an AVR, that AVR is not going to be able to react quick enough for when something heavy turns on and then it turns off or it gets up to speed. That AVR is not going to react as quickly. You'll get a momentary spike in voltage, and
Yeah.
that's actually what destroys things
Yeah.
more
So
so
if you
than
so
high
all of a sudden
THD.
your fridge turns on while you're watching your $800 TV, and then boom, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really the bigger issue now with say a modern refrigerator or also with modern HVAC. There's issues there too. But say a
Soft start
modern
and things.
refrigerator, not even so much that. So think of a modern refrigerator. It doesn't have a reciprocating compressor most of the time. I think they call it a scroll compressor, but
Mm.
it's not running. It's a variable speed, meaning it's going to be slow when there's not really a lot of demand, and then obviously at full speed when it's not cold enough in your refrigerator. Well, that's not running on AC voltage directly like the old kinds. It's running on a switch mode computer power supply, and the computer power supplies that are in there are what burn up because the components inside
Is
are
that
not.
capacitors, Gary? Is it capacitors storing and supplying, or?
Yeah, so it's a nonlinear load, meaning that it's not using all the power all at once. So it could be 10% duty cycle, 30%, 100%.
Mhm.
But the higher harmonic distortion that you get, that those voltages at the higher frequencies. So you have 60 hertz, which is or 50 hertz if you're in Europe. Then you have 120, 240, all the even and odd order harmonics. There's voltages at those frequencies that the load cannot handle. So what happens? It's wasted as heat, as waste heat. The
Mhm.
components inside these power supplies for your refrigerator, your HVAC, your natural gas furnace, things like that, are not designed to handle too much heat. I mean, they're oversized to a certain degree, but at some point, the cumulative damage from being overheated by high total harmonic distortion, that's where the problems happen.
Mhm.
And, but that happens over time. It could happen quickly, it could happen over a long period, and people won't even notice it. But it's the surges that kill things more often than not. Just make sure you have a good surge protector. They sell RV surge protectors with the L1430 or the L1420s before you even connect it to your transfer switch. So if you do get a spike, well, then that'll clamp down on it before it goes to your house, for example. You know,
Cool.
just cheap insurance.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Because I mean, I've used inverter generator for a long time for my house, so it's hard for me to comment on how a traditional one will kill things. But
Mhm.
I did have a traditional one recently. I was testing, and it started to misfire due to a bad spark plug, and it fried my oscilloscope because it was sending the
Oof.
engine speed was fluctuating wildly. The AVR was trying to compensate, and it was just sending surges. The hertz were all over the place,
Your
and it took
probe,
that
yeah.
out. Now, if it was
Hmm.
hooked up to my house when it did that, it could have been not just the oscilloscope.
Mhm.
Could have been
It
a lot
was
more.
right, and that's kind of one of the reasons too why it's not recommended to run a generator or shut it off when there's a load. Part of it is too, if you run it and it starts to run out of fuel, you're also going to get that surging where it starts to
Yeah, up
die,
and
it comes
down, up and
back, it
down.
starts to
Yeah,
die, it comes back, and you're going to get those voltage and hertz spikes, and the AVR is going to be overreacting, underreacting. I mean, just everything is, it's
yeah.
not healthy
Can't,
for whatever's on the receiving end of that.
I
can't
know when you
react fast
when
enough.
you
Yeah.
when you did that diesel, it was amazing how you started out and it was like 4 total harmonic, and then it ended up, what, about 27 by the time
Yeah,
you put the full loads
yeah.
on it?
Well, that's the Ryobi quality, but even I joke, but most generators sub $1,000, you're gonna easily get 20% harmonic distortion.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So yeah, that one wasn't great, but
Mhm.
unless you're gonna get a high end one, which most aren't, that's pretty typical,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Now Bill's
Yeah.
asking about a furnace. I mean, just a furnace. I mean, when I think of furnace, I think of like a hot water boiler. Okay, it could be gas or whatever, but I know in my furnace, it's just the oil pump. That's all there is. You know, you
Right.
have the little aquastat and stuff like that, but that really
Yeah.
doesn't draw anything. But I mean, a small oil pump, what's that gonna? I mean, you could probably get away with an EU 2000 all day long. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I agree
depends
with that.
too.
Yeah.
Is it just is it a forced hot water? Where it's just powering a little pump, circulating it.
Yeah,
You have
circulator
big
pump.
blowers, but even that, it doesn't take a lot. A furnace.
No,
Well,
like I said,
assuming it's oil,
when the oil pump
like
kicks on, a
natural
little bit
gas.
of a surge, but
It
not
it
much.
does take like 2 to 3 times. So most of the time you have, if it's an oil fire, like 'cause
Yeah.
mine's on a 15 amp breaker, right? And a 15 amp, it's not gonna have a lot of running amps, right?
Yeah, but
Probably like
that's
5 or
1800
6 amps.
watts, right? I
No,
mean, yeah.
Right,
it
right. And then
it depends what you have. Like if you have an air handler, that fan is probably the biggest load when it comes on, not the furnace.
Yeah. Yep. What's a
yeah, I mean,
linear?
it's just a linear compressor. It's not a scroll compressor. So when a scroll is the compressor looks like it's a tube, but there's
Yeah,
it looks like a corkscrew inside. I'm
yeah,
not too familiar with that.
like a scroll supercharger. Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Uh-oh. James, you've done
Yeah.
motorcycles, you've done all kinds of crap. The guy wants to know when you're gonna do an outboard.
It's funny you should say that. I have one. Actually, my friend Jason has one. He's holding it for me, but I'm swamped with other projects right now. So
Is there something
it's
wrong with
coming.
it, or
I don't know. He got someone threw it away. So yeah, something's wrong with it.
Jason's the
Wow.
dump guy, or
He's the dump
Yeah.
guy. So he actually brought me
I-
this from the dump the other day, which I think I'm going to keep. I'm going to have to buy
It's
this
good
from
to have a
him.
dump guy.
Yeah, I met him I think last year. He picked up a GP
Oh, the
5500
bike
from me.
It's
Oh wow.
an older bike. It has a 2-stroke on it,
conversion. Yeah.
leather case.
Huh.
He also brought me that Champion in the back, which is also dump. He doesn't answer too many questions about this facility, but he has access, and they set stuff aside for him, and he brings it to me.
Is that your town, Jim, or some an
No.
adjacent town? Okay.
No, it's probably closer to you. Not much, but it's
He's not
heading
that far
toward
from
you.
me.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah,
funny.
he's more closer to me.
My friend Hydro Harry, he lived in Woodbury, Connecticut. Okay,
That's
and
next to me.
they had the best dump. Oh my God, he had a cousin of his who was the dump manager, so of course he got everything. Whatever he wanted, he got. But like I said, some dumps are dumped. Like I said, you got guys there where they'll get a John Deere tractor that just needs a tune-up, and they'll, just to piss you off, put it on the forks and dump it into the dumpster 20 feet down just to watch you cry as it's going down. It's like, I'll give you $100 for it. Nope. And they just, you want to kill them, but it's like, we can't do that,
Yeah. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Like you have to know someone who knows
do it.
someone. Yeah. Like it's,
Woodbury-
I don't know if it's not allowed or if they just don't want, they don't want
I
to
have
deal
a
with
friend
it.
at my dump that I've known since I was a child. But the thing is, you go in there at the beginning of the season like now, and you bring them a bunch of coffee and egg sandwiches and say, hey, look, if you ever see this, then they'll help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's always quid pro quo. It's never just, oh, I'm a nice guy. No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And nothing against guys who work at dumps, but I've been to a few where they're pricks, and they know it, and they know they could be that way, and they get off on it. So
all I can say is I'm glad I don't work at the dump or as a garbage man, because I would bring home so much stuff.
Oh my God, exactly. But even something simple like I said to the guy one time, he goes, even the push mowers, I'll come right at 7 a.m. when you open. Just let me spend 5 minutes with my gun and take some of the screws off, because just some of the hardware, the shoulder screws and things, they're getting $4, $5, $6 for these things. I said, or the recoil, just let me take a few of them apart, then you can throw them out. But just a few of these, even the wheels on a push mower, just give me 10-15 minutes, I'll disassemble everything.
Take them all off.
Yeah.
A
lot of times they said not allowed.
Yeah, you gotta know it's who you know more than anything.
It is.
And if it is truly Woodbury, because Woodbury handles the hazmat pickup here in our area, every 3 months they can take all the household chemicals, because then they have to chemically dispose of it. So usually, if I have a lot of paint varnish, the gasoline that used to be inside generators, that's where you go when you have it chemically
Yeah,
disposed
we
of.
have once a year, the line's a mile and a half long unless you get there at 4 a.m. for the hazmat dump off for the paint and varnish and
Yeah.
chemicals and
Yeah,
all that. Yeah.
Ours is
because
coming up in a few
every
weeks.
ours is as
We
well.
do
But
3
like I
different
said,
towns. Yeah, we do Trumbull, Monroe, and Shelton, and the
yeah,
line is literally a mile long. It
Yeah.
just
yeah, because
Yeah.
that's the only
Same
time they
here.
take it.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's terrible. You spend hours waiting
Yeah. I mean,
to
do
dump off
what
a
we
few
used to
gallons of
do.
fuel.
You'd wrap it up in a ton of plastic and throw it in with your normal trash, which is fine.
I
All of a
Yeah.
sudden,
know, which I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that mentality because it's hard to dispose of
is.
it properly.
It is.
And
it
there's a
is.
limit to how much they'll take. They only take
Yeah.
5 gallons
So
every
many.
6 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Because what are
I'm
they
right
going
at
to
the
do with
limit
it?
right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
no,
what
there's
are
ways to process it to get rid of it or to convert it into something else, but that costs money. So the state itself is spending money to get rid of it. So
Yeah, or if you know somebody with a waste oil furnace, which they're trying to get rid of those all the time
but
around
you gotta watch because the auto or advanced auto by me, okay, would always take your oil, okay, just because it was a service they offered. They in turn would sell it to a guy for his waste oil furnace. The problem was you can't put solvents in with it because if it doesn't evaporate over time, it'll create noxious fumes in the waste oil burner. And they got fined $25,000 for emitting noxious fumes. And what it was, there was toluene, benzene, like brake clean stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
That
stuff.
they,
Yeah.
instead of letting it just evaporate in the air, they mixed it in with their waste oil and it takes forever to evaporate out of waste oil, and they ended up burning it in their waste oil furnace and got caught. The neighbors were complaining, "What's the smell?" Blah 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 blah. It was these chemicals burning, creating noxious fumes. So you really got to watch it. And now this advanced auto will not take waste oil unless they know you and know that you're 100% with them. They said, "Look, you can mix in brake fluid." You can mix in hydraulic fluid, just no solvents. It's the people that did the brake jobs with the brake clean and then just
And the
pour it
drains on
all
the
into the
bottom.
same thing. Yeah, that's what killed it. So what I do normally when I use brake clean or acetone or whatever, I keep it in the pan and just let it air out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or what I'll do, I'll filter it into a container and use it, because you can still use it,
Yeah.
But if you have a pan, like a drip tray full of it, if you just leave it out for 2 hours, it's gone, So, but don't mix it with waste oil because, oh God, it creates noxious fumes supposedly when it burns.
Oh, it's terrible, especially the chlorinated ones.
Yeah. What do we got here? Take the extra. Oh, you got to clean the engine. Oh, I hate working on dirty stuff.
Yeah. I get criticized a lot for that too, because I don't usually clean them until I know it's worth cleaning.
Yeah, if you're going to throw it out, why clean it, right?
Right.
And you charge your customers for that?
I don't have customers.
He doesn't have customers. Yeah, I was going to say he does it all for the videos.
No.
Customers are too stressful. I don't take customers.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I'm like this.
Good man.
Yeah.
I know.
Customers are always right in our industry.
I shouldn't say that. I mean, people do send me stuff sometimes wanting it back, and I'm telling that's fine, but I work on my own schedule, and I might make it worse.
No,
and I say that jokingly, but yeah, that's my concern. Is like people, if they're paying for a service, they have expectations, and I hate trying to meet those expectations.
Yeah. Bill, if I have gas mixed with oil,
Amen to that.
It happens all the time. I'll leave it in a large surface area opening container for a few days, and ultimately it will wick out. But it takes a while. It really takes a while. Gas isn't as bad though. Gasoline is not bad. I'm talking toluene, benzene, all these really, really bad chemicals. Gasoline isn't as bad. And even he said you're going to get gasoline in oil. So when waste oil comes in with a little bit of gasoline, that's okay. Hydrocarbon fuel, that's okay. It's those other chemicals in the cleaners that's causing the problems. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Predator 3500 with 3,000. Wow,
3,000.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Yeah.
Southern Oregon. Okay, who's in Oregon who wants something?
I know. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll start driving right now.
There you go.
Us East Coast guys.
But I'm curious though, Southern Oregon, what's the altitude over there? Does that have different jetting and everything because of the altitude?
I think it's over 2,000 feet. You need
like
different jetting.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know about that too. Because they try to when they ship them out, they make sure that okay, if it's destined to go to certain states, they put the high altitude jets in from the factory.
Yeah, less air, less fuel.
Yeah, less fuel, less power.
Mm. Well, that's why when I used to do drag racing, we had one event at the Mile High in Denver that we'd go to once a year, and you had to change everything. You had to change your tow rig, you had to change your race car, everything had to be changed because the minute you start going up to 5,000 feet, oh man, the thing just dies.
Hmm.
Yeah. Let's see, what do we got here? Putting new tires on.
Oh,
Oh
thanks,
boy.
Paul. Yeah, Paul needed help with his tires. So the thing is, this is the one I think I asked you about, Ken. One of the rims, they were stuck on the axle, and the tire wasn't in great shape, so it needed to be replaced. So I was debating whether I should change the tire on the snowblower. Like,
Yeah, I leave it on. I've left them on. Yeah.
So I actually did that. It was easy. It went really easy. And then I took one off, the one that came off, to change the tire, and that took 3 times longer to change off the machine. I'm like, I should have just left it on.
Yeah, that's what
the machine holds it really still, so you can pry on it better.
Yep. The first time I did that, though, what pissed me off was I should have taken the axle off, to be honest, to put it in a vise or something. What happened was I used my tire irons and vice grips and things like that, and a little bit of a burr on the back side. I couldn't see it, and I ripped the tube. And it's like, oh, I know. That's like, you just have to make sure the bead is perfectly smooth. If you're using a vice grip to hold the bead or hold the tire iron, make sure you use a vice grip without the serrated jaw, so it doesn't raise a big burr on the rim.
Makes sense, yeah. James, do you have the bead chaser tool that you can get from Harbor Freight for the smaller ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hank don't know. I only have some tire spoons, and I have the mini changer from Harbor Freight.
Wait, when you say bead chaser, do you mean the pneumatic gun, or what do you mean?
No, it mounts to the ground, and then you can use these long arms to go and chase the bead around. That's one thing
they have 2 of them. They have 2 of them. I
think
2. Yeah. I have one that I put in my vise. It's
right.
I think it's what you're talking about, but it's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the bar
that's one thing I won't do.
Rub it around.
Yeah, that's one thing I won't do, because there's a place right here in town that does
my dealer charges me under $10. Do it. As
long
as
it's like $10
from him. Because if we spend a half hour, that's what, $30 or whatever. It's like not worth it.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. For $10, I just tell them go down to that place there here in town, and they do it. They've sent me business too, and it's just a lot cheaper for them to do it because they have the tooling already.
Generic question for you guys.
By the way,
you, James.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, you could just think of a leg as a circuit. So there's 2 circuits in the generator, and if you have 5,000 watt generator, that's 120 240 volt output. That 5,000 watts, it's actually 2,500 on one of the coils or legs or circuits, and 2,500 on the other. So a lot of people don't understand that, and they'll try loading it up with 3,000 watts, trip the breaker, and they're like, "What's wrong with my generator?" Well, they didn't distribute the load, across each of the legs. For 240, you combine those 2 legs together in series, so that's how you get the 240. But most things you connect to it, even in your house, run at 120. And in your circuit breaker box, the even ones are one of the legs and the odds are the other.
Yeah.
So
I've had one side of my box go out on the pole out at the street.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah, and like half the things in your house don't work.
Exactly.
So yeah, and that's why if you look at your breaker box, there's 2 live wires coming in.
Not sure if you guys can see that.
Nope.
What's it? This guy?
Here, go ahead. Yeah, hold on. Let me get just so it can help with the illustration a little bit more. Sorry about that, guys.
But you can think of it too as 2 batteries, right? Each one's 120 volts.
There, you should be able to see that.
If you hook them together, you get twice the voltage, and that's essentially what the generator is doing. You have to have, if you want 120 and 240, you need to break it into 2 120 circuits that you can connect together to make 240, or you can use them as 120s.
Can you guys see that graphic that I just put up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that should help a little bit more to illustrate what
You
he's
want to
talking
zoom in
about.
on one of those, Gary, instead of showing 5?
Yeah, hold on just a sec here.
Because I know it shrinks it a little bit.
And let me try going full screen. Actually, that should help you.
What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so this is what he's referring to. So
Legs.
here's your two stator windings. You know, they're connected in series, right? And it's center tapped in the middle. There's your neutral, and then across the two outer lines here are hot. So there's your 120x and then 120y on each side. So all the way across it is 240 volts AC, but between one of the hots and your neutral center tap of between the two windings is your 120 volts. So when they say balancing the legs of the generator, that's what they're referring to. You're putting X amount of load on the first winding here. You don't want to overload that one winding if you're putting just 120 volt appliances on there.
Yeah.
If you're going to put, say, go ahead.
So talking about 120, the question I had was, James, you had mentioned it in one of your videos, I believe, when you have the 120 outlets on there, is one 120 outlet purely one leg and the other leg, and then the 240 the combined?
The 240 is definitely the combined. The problem is on the 120s.
Because didn't you run into it where they had it wired wrong, so it was like half of one, half of another or something?
The problem is it's different on every machine. So if you have two 120 outlets, the assumption is one on the left is one of the legs, the one on the right's the other leg. But sometimes it's the ones on the top are one leg, and the ones on the bottom are the other leg.
I got you.
And sometimes it's just all the same leg, and you can't even use the other one.
Yeah, and that's how it is on the Predator 9500, I found out. The two duplex outlets are paralleled on L1, the leg 1 of the generator. So if you try to pull more than 31 amps from that side of the generator, you're going to overload it, even though it's got more capacity. Yeah. I realized that. A lot of generators, just like you mentioned, the top duplex is one leg, the bottom duplex is another, but not all of them are wired that way. But that was a flaw when I found out with the Predator.
How would a homeowner know that, though? I mean, is there a test or something?
They have to open it up. They have to open up and look at the wires.
You don't. There's a few ways. You could open it up, look at the wires. You could find the circuit diagram. If you have a multimeter, set it to measure volts, and you actually put one probe in the hut on one of the plugs and the other probe in the hut on the other.
Too.
Not the neutral. You put them in the
hots.
Oh, to see if they're connected.
Right. So it'll either read 0, which means they're the same leg, or it'll read 240 from the 120s. Because they're not only 120s, but they're 120s 180 degrees apart.
Separate. Yeah.
So when one's a positive 120, the other one's a negative 120. And the difference is 240.
I guess Predator says it on the outlets.
Yep. Yeah, I had to figure that out when I looked up the schematic for the inverter unit.
Interesting.
Yep. I mean, and again, that's if you're just using, those duplex outlets. Most of the time, if you're going to get an inverter generator or a generator that big, you're going to be using the twist lock and using a breakout panel that has multiple duplex outlets, or you're running your house or you're running your food truck with it. Yeah.
Hey, on this with the points out, you could use any converter box, right? I mean, you don't need an Onin kit, right, to convert to electronic, or do you?
Yeah, I haven't done any conversions, but I mean, you could jerry rig it too. Like I've seen people use the points.
I mean, I do it in chainsaws all the time. I use the little box, and that's it.
Yeah,
you're just getting rid of the capacitor and all that.
Yeah.
It's just a signal. It's just a switch. I mean, that's all it's doing.
Exactly. It's just a switch. So do you still use the points as a switch, and you're just powering something else?
The points are still there. You're taking out the capacitor and using the box. But there's you can get all different types on there, I mean, the Honda, that little box that Honda has, they're like $12, $14 on Amazon, and there's all different ones. But I do it a lot in older Kohler engines and older chainsaws. People want to convert to electronics, so they don't have to they only use the thing once a year, and they don't have to file the points every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Any of those conversion
less
kits.
arcing. Don't they convert that to a lower voltage so it doesn't arc?
Yeah, it's solid state.
Yeah.
It goes to a solid state. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So the points don't.
Yeah, that's all.
Don't get all yucky.
Yeah. Yep.
Fun.
Yeah, Lewis, just stay with the points.
Stay with the points.
But it's funny. Like,
but you can't. If you can't get them, then it's a problem. You don't want to wear them out if you have a set.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know how hard it is on that Emerald 3.4 to get to them. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt to get to the shroud, to take it off, to get to it, and all that. So, anywho,
back to us what we were saying about THD. For perspective, a modified sine wave or a step square wave is 25% THD. So when we're talking about a generator at full load that's around 20%, it's pretty dirty. A square wave, a pure square wave, is 48.3% THD, which none of these generators that we've come across will be that high. But even at 20 to 21%, which we've seen generators be that high, not a good
so
thing.
when Jim is showing his oscilloscope, the rattier looking the sine wave, the more THD.
Right. That's actually the rotor ringing in real time. Okay. That's what all the different harmonics are transposing onto that 60 hertz that he's zeroing in on his oscilloscope.
Which one, Eric? Let us know which one you're talking about.
Is there a link?
Well, no. What are the two you were talking about, Gary? The two surge protectors, a 1450. One of those two that you were talking about, the different surge protectors.
Oh yeah, like they have the RV ones that are for like 120 volts, but I know they have the L1430s. But do you have a link? I'll see if I can find one.
Yeah, let us know what you're talking about. Which one you're talking about, Eric?
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, they're not terribly expensive either.
Where would that get hooked up, Gary? How would that get hooked up? You were saying about your transfer switch, things like that. How would you?
You could go right at the transfer switch, or you can go right. I mean, I'll send a link here in the chat here real quick it has the correct ends, the L1430 plug and the receptacle. But this should help you guys. I mean, and there's other ones on Amazon too, but it also has some diagnostics in there. Link in the next comment. All right, well, while you do that, I'm going to go punch this link in here just to give everyone an idea of what I'm talking about as far as surge protection, but that's just one off-brand that I just happened to pick the first result. But that's the kind of device I was referring to. And this one actually is pretty cool. It actually can tell you, does it have an open ground? Are the wires reversed? That kind of thing. $72, or maybe a little less with the coupon if you have Amazon.
Oh yeah, they use those on RVs a lot.
Yeah, so if you just they'll just clamp down on the high voltage there. That's what I figure. That it's cheap insurance. It's not going to hurt it. Not having one. And I know like a lot of the older generators their AVR topology is, if the AVR fails, it's going to go high voltage,
full power.
It's not going to shut it. It's not going to shut down.
Yeah, someone actually that happens. I've had a few that's happened. It's about 160, 170 volts on the 120.
Right. It's using
when the AVR fails. Yeah.
Yeah. It's using a negative feedback loop. If it's receiving a signal to bias that transistor lower to regulate that 120 volts, but if it loses that feedback signal, or if a diode pops, or if the SCR, the silicon controlled rectifier, bad connection, more times than not, that 3-pin Molex connector on a couple board sets I've seen, once they corrode and they fail, things are going to go snap, crackle, pop, unfortunately.
Yeah, Gary, you talked about this in the beginning of the chat, the CO detector. The newer ones are a lot better than the old ones used to be.
I haven't run across any issues with them. For liability reasons, if I get one in and it's faulty, if there's a
but you made the comment about the food trucks. If they mount them in the front by the propane tanks and the exhaust from the truck or something, it can cause them to fault.
Yeah, I mean, they're very sensitive. So like the way the way that they're set up for is that the sensor is usually inside the machine, right? And if it goes up to a certain parts per million, there's a time delay before it actually goes and shuts off the machine. Some of them nuisance trip. And what I see a lot of people do is they'll put a piece of duct tape over the sniffer or the
Okay.
sensor, and it bypasses it. If you can't on the inverter generators, they're harder to bypass. Only with the exception of that 9500 Predator, you just snip a wire, right? But for liability reasons, if I see it bypass, I have to put it back to the way it was. If they want to go and disconnect it again, then that's fine. But at least liability, I have to put it in. In my opinion, I think they're more of a pain in the ass than they're worth. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
running a generator that far, that close to your house anyway. You should be putting it, out of the way and pointing the exhaust opposite of your house, for example, or opposite of your food truck. But it's just the new safety stuff. It's just
Yeah.
more. It's something else. It's something else to go wrong. Is my issue.
Exactly. I'm noticing though some of the newer ones too now have a switch to defeat it, so you can choose whether it's in circuit or not.
Then why have it at all?
What
Well,
a
let's just this
branch?
though. That's something you might want to have. To your point, it's a good safety thing, but if it starts misbehaving, just hit the switch and then don't use it.
Well, the
But
only reason I would say you're at a small engine show and they've got all kinds of hit and miss engine stuff, there'll be a lot of CO in the air. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And if you're using it to power your grill or your motorhome or something, and you've got 30 or 40 hit and miss engines around the area, it may kick it off. It
It
may.
may kick it off, but
Yeah.
on the conventional generators and on most of the generators, it's just connect. It's sensing. It's a switch. It senses if there's too much CO, it'll complete the circuit to ground out the ignition. That's what they're designed to do. On some of the Hondas and the Yamahas, and even on some of the Furmans and a few other brands that I've come across, the CO sensor is tied into the inverter unit. So not only will it shut the engine off, but it will also shut off the inverter. The inverter needs a square pulsing signal from the board that runs the CO sniffer in order to turn on. So you can't exactly bypass it. It has to be in circuit somehow. So they're getting smarter, so people are can't bypass them as easily.
Yeah.
But thankfully, for a lot of the cheaper ones, you don't have to worry about that. Just snip a wire and you're
Yeah.
good to go.
Chris here's acting about the soft start. I was thinking about putting one on mine just so I don't tax my capacitor as much, because I have to. My capacitor's starting to blow out a little bit. I got to change it. I mean, it's 30 years
Yeah.
old. I mean, it's time. But I see a lot of the guys with the soft start. They
The
don't like.
micro.
They don't. Yeah, the micros. They don't like where their lights dim and all that stuff. So you have the ramp
Right.
up and everything. But what's your opinion of those for using it for? Say you have a 5,000 watt. I mean, it's funny though. I mean, what does it really take to run central air aside from the startup? What does it take to run the compressor, and what does it take to run the fan? I mean,
Double pole 30. You're probably going to run about 20 amps.
But I mean,
16 to 20 amps running.
well,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
a 7,500 watt generator should handle that.
It should, if it can
should.
get started.
But the soft
Right.
start, the soft start would help because that way you're not drawing as much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
it's-
And that's what I got. Not
And
for
was
the
it called the
AC.
Micro Start? Is that the one that's on Amazon?
Micro air.
Micro Air. That's right. Yeah, Micro Air. Okay.
That's just one example. There's a couple different brands
but
out
they
there.
sell Micro Air sells a couple different versions depending on now. Does that have anything to do with if you're going to use it just to reduce your startup versus using it with a generator? Is there an advantage of
Well, that's the
design?
specific need for it. They have them for like a 2-ton, a 3-ton, all the way up to I believe a 6-ton.
But does it matter where the power is coming from, whether it be a generator or just your house power?
No,
I mean,
No.
I mean the soft start. I know the purpose of it and all that, but he's asking specifically with the generator. Is there any one in particular that, or they all do the same thing? Basically, it's just
they all pretty much do the same thing. Because when the relay closes for when the thermostat calls for cooling, for example, once that relay closes, then the micro air will receive that signal. It'll start the fan first, and then using the high, I think they use silicon controlled rectifiers, firing very quickly so that it brings up the current very, very gradually. So instead of an 80 to 130 amps of startup current, it's going to bring it down to like
30,
20, 30. Well, yeah, I've seen them lot low They were having some problems with a few of them, but I think they've, Micro Air is monitoring that group a lot because there's, again, people down in Texas. You guys are kind of like the testing environment because everyone's using them right now.
Yeah, we've
But
gone to
yeah,
all SCRs at our place because we were blowing contactors left and right. So now
yeah,
it's all
Yep. Yep.
SCRs. Yeah.
they're
I have
worth having. I
something
mean, it's
similar. No, I have something similar because my well had a huge surge, the well pump.
yep,
And that was the big thing. I don't run in central air when I lose power, but I need water.
yeah, you
And
didn't, yeah,
to turn the pump on, I would literally turn everything else off. I have an inverter. I would put it on eco off, flip the fuse for the pump, and just hope.
But
And
isn't the pump though on off on off on off to fill your tank up? I mean, how?
it is, yeah. Once the tank is full, you can shut it off, and you may not need it for the rest of the day.
Oh,
But
okay. Okay.
so it was fine, but it was something that I had to do. So when that pump eventually failed, I got one that it's not a soft start; it's more a variable speed pump, but
yep,
it ramps up gradually and it just avoids the whole surge altogether. So now I don't even have to worry about it
yeah. And
on
inverters
generator
are not
power.
known for their surge. They're
Right.
usually very conservatively rated for surge power.
Yes.
Depends on
Yep.
how the transistors are implemented, but they're great devices. They're a little pricey. Like the one for a 5 ton is like 380. The last slide, $380 US. Like 6 wires, I think. Not really that difficult to install,
Yeah,
but
because I'm
and they
going to
have
put a
weatherproof
micro. I'm
boxes
going to
and
put one
everything.
on mine when I change my. I mean, the season's
Yeah,
over, thank God. But when I'm going to have to change my startup cap because it's starting to bulge a little bit, and it did
mhm.
fail. It only failed temporarily. Now it's working. It's been working for a month and a half, 2 months. But
Drying out. Yeah,
yeah, but I'm going to have to change it. But I figure at the same time to avoid the ramp up and all that, I mean the surge.
yeah,
I'll try one of those. And you can mount it anywhere really. Right? I've seen guys mount them on the side of the house. I've seen them mount them inside the thing there because they're generally weather protected when you buy them. They have like, its own little like weatherproof
yeah.
case.
It's in an enclosed
Yeah,
IP67 enclosure. So yeah, you can do that. The capacitors, I changed mine about 3 or 4 years ago, and the original one was a US cap. It was bulging just like yours.
yeah.
The only ones I can find now, they're either made in Mexico,
No, there's the
they're
one
made
made in
over.
Texas, but it's like three
There's
times
one.
the cost.
It's 3 times the cost
Yeah,
exactly, but
yeah,
they are built far better
yep,
than the ones that you get from Amazon. So
yeah.
I expect that something that lasted 20 some odd years,
Mine's
American
34
made, is
years. 34 years.
right.
I'm like,
Well, they
holy
last
crap.
a long
Yeah.
time, but they don't make
No,
stuff the way they used to.
no.
So if
I
I
watch a
expect that
guy.
Mexican made one to
Yeah,
not last as long.
I watch a guy, Mikey Pipes. He's a HVAC and plumber and all that stuff, and he
Yeah,
moved down to Florida, so now he's AC all the time. And he recommends. I forget the. I'll get the brand, but there's a brand of capacitor now, and that's all
yeah,
he uses. He says he will not buy the Chinesium and all that stuff.
yeah. I mean, you get what you pay for. A lot of that overseas manufacturing, the tolerances are not as controlled or not as tight with the quality control. So, I mean, I picked that mine up for $45, and it's been
That's
running
not bad.
fine. I can't complain.
Yeah, I think mine's what is it, a 70/5 or something? So
And
weird.
actually, I have the window open. I can tell you exactly.
There's another guy on there, HVAC guy. I think it's the Carolinas. He's got a
It's
lot of good
a
stuff too.
it's a Gen TEQ GEN TEQ capacitor, 55/5 microfarads at 440 volts,
Hmm.
and that's for a 5 ton unit.
Yeah, mine's only 3. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're not that expensive. It's a Capcom. It's made by Capcom. 20,
Capcom, that's it.
20
Yep.
$26.
Oh, that's not bad.
$26. Not bad at all.
Hmm.
Murphy's Law. It's always good to keep a couple, keep a spare.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna buy 2. That's for sure.
Keep a spare. Murphy's Law. Mike says he's in Okay, so you're in San Antonio. I got family that lives out in McKinney and also the DFW area. Not fairly far, I don't think. Changed it twice in the last 5 years. Well, you guys run the AC almost all the time. It's like you can't survive without AC. Yeah, Capcom. Yeah, that's what's in my
Yeah.
AC right now. So
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Not the same company that makes arcade games. Isn't there a Capcom?
There used to
Are they
be.
out of business?
I think they're still around. Can't see the picture too well, but like I thought it was made in Mexico.
Yeah, they're still there. Capcom Home
Yeah.
Arcade. Yep.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Japanese video game development.
nice.
Formed in 1983.
Ooh, the year I graduated college.
You guys are making me feel terribly young.
Hey, remember,
Even though I don't feel like it.
I graduated with your mom, so don't, you could be my kid for God's sake,
For those, if you guys haven't figured it out, my whole screen name 85. That's when I was born.
Yeah, a year after that, I bought my first new car. Let's see.
Yeah, I got the R22 system still, so it's
So do I.
It's still,
Oh wow!
And my
still
Nice.
running, but now they're getting rid of.
Yeah, my
They're getting
buddy
rid
has
of
a tank of
that.
it, and
Yeah.
he said, "Kenny, it's got your name on it," because he says, "I don't know anyone who still has it." And this tank, this is no bullshit. This tank is from 1981. Okay, it had never been used. It was given to him by our auto shop teacher at high school back in the 80s. Okay,
Wow.
never been used. It still was in the cardboard box. Okay,
Jeez.
it was the was it the green or the pink, whatever the color was for R22 for the tank. Okay, I think it was
Green.
pink.
Yeah.
Or was it green? Yeah, whatever the color
I think
was.
it's
Anyway,
green. Yeah.
so but hold it upside down, put it on the scale, measure it. It was a full tank, never been used. My system that was so it was, my daughter was born in 93. We installed the air in 94. So 30 years. It's a 30-year-old system. I'd never added refrigerant in 30 years. Okay. He said it's a 5.7 pound system. He said it needed 1 pound. And we went from struggling to keep 75 degrees in the house to like 68 just by adding that 1 pound of refrigerant. It was like, it changed it miraculous. The vents went from 72 degrees coming out the vent to 58. Just because of 1 pound. But you know what he said to me? He goes, "Don't play with it.
Don't play with it. Leave it that.
Leave it alone." He said, "Just leave
every
it alone."
time.
Yep.
I'm always checking.
He said they don't make these things like they used to. Leave it alone. And I said, "Yeah, but it's 30 years old." He's like, "Leave it alone."
Yep. So. No, I check the vents coming off of so they call it a supply plenum, and it's always about 56 to 58 degrees, and I'm happy with that.
That's what he said. If you get in the 50s, he goes, "You're fine," especially when it's 100 degrees out. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? Because we're an hour and 36 in. Anybody else out there? I don't want to keep you guys all night. I don't have to work, so it doesn't matter to me. But
nice. Jealous.
No, lucky you.
Well, I've got 250 hours banked up, and I get 15 hours a month extra vacation added. But if I don't use that 15 hours a month, I lose it. They delete it.
Oh,
yeah.
So I have to take 15 or say 2 days a month, and it's just the shit's hitting the fan at work. Machines are breaking, this and that and the other thing. And I've got vendors and everybody coming in. But you know what? I'm taking it. I said I'll take Thursday and Monday, a nice 5-day weekend. But now the funny thing is, this is the weekend I'm on call. So I've got the phone. It's like, watch, my 5-day weekend's going to be on the phone all weekend.
Probably. That's how it works.
It's just it happens. It's
yep, the man, the myth, the legend.
I make appearances. Actually, the video tomorrow, you'll see my face for about 1 second.
So other than generators, James, what else you got in the pipeline? Anything coming up pretty soon?
Other than generators, I have a lot of generators in the pipeline. The only non-generator is that bike I showed you. And I actually have a couple of chainsaws, which I've been ignoring. I really need to look at them. Any
name brand or just junk?
One is a steel. I want to say it's an 031.
Oh, I have one of those. That's an oldie but
big.
Goodie.
It's big and heavy.
That's got points in it. Well, no, unless it's an AV. Unless it's an AV. I mean,
no, it's not an
electronic. It's not an electronic one. No,
it's not an AV. And the other one is a big, huge Dayton.
Oh my God! Yeah, Dayton's like Home Light usually.
No, I mean,
they usually copied the Home Light style.
This looks more like
Probably weighs a metric ton.
Mm.
looks more like
Or solo. It could be solo too.
tucked away.
Oh, you'll scare the kids at Halloween with that.
Yeah, where's the
It's
muffler on the
molded.
front? Oh wow, yeah, that's almost like a John Surretter Husky, as far as the design.
Nice.
Yeah, it's.
That's a true
Oh yeah,
woodsman's
that's a
tool right
pull on.
there.
That's a pull on. Yeah, it's a
It
pull
looks
on.
like a pull-on because that little
The cover, yeah, the cover.
gives it
It is
away.
Husky pull on, AYP. Yeah, that's what it is. Yep.
But it is all metal, so it's old,
Yep.
older.
Yeah, back when things were actually built to last.
What model was that, James? Have a model number on it?
Yeah, I think so. 4Z251A. There's no brake either, so that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that definitely is it.
No,
Aging
I'm
it
looking
there.
it up right now. Okay, that chainsaw actually was made by Granger. Granger
Wow.
actually made that saw. Yep, and there's no data on it. Wow.
Yeah.
There's no data. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. I hope it doesn't need anything.
All of us small engine guys are always fighting that terrible term, planned obsolescence.
Oh no, I take it back. Alice Chalmers
Really?
was involved in that. Yep, I got a parts diagram actually.
Send it to me.
Yeah. Oh, you know what comes up on a parts diagram? You know what's available for that saw? The only part available? The bar and chain. It's the only thing that shows up on a parts diagram.
Well, the bar's looking pretty ratty.
Yeah. But Alice Chalmers, I'm interested in the relationship. Yeah. Interesting. I'll take a look out though, because that 4Z251A, that's got to be something out there. Huh. Let's see. Oh, Arch had one of those chainsaws, Arch. Interesting. Arch, why don't you come up, say hello? I like watching Arch's live on Saturday night. We have a good time on his. Mine's civilized. His gets uncivilized.
Well, it is past a lot of people's bedtime, so I guess we can just hang.
Yeah, I feel
a
bad
little
for our
bit
friends in Europe because it's 3-4 in the morning. But
yeah, and I know that all of our schedule guys. I mean, all of us have regular daytime jobs. Small engines, kind of an ancillary, secondary thing that
coffee money
we
for
enjoy.
me. Money,
right?
Yeah,
it is. I mean, it's an ancillary, secondary thing for Sue and I. I mean, it makes good money, but a lot of times, we get to pick and choose what we do, right?
Yeah.
Things can pile up, and I when you at the top of the stream there, Ken, you mentioned about not being able to take anything and just refusing everything for the last couple weeks. I get it,
and they get pissed.
Oh, I don't care if they get pissed. That's the best thing.
I say to them, I said, excuse me. I go, I work full time, 50, 60 hours a week and this and that. And I said, I've got a mother who's ill and I've been doing stuff with her and stuff like that. It's like, wait, guys. It's like, I have my life. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Every life happens,
I'm not going to drop everything I'm doing for your mower,
Well, and this is where I get,
and they get irate. I mean, they'll call me up sometimes on, they're getting my number from wherever, but it's just like, sometimes they talk to you like they own you. And it's like, really? Yeah.
Well, and a lot of times too, and we have really good customers around town here and everything, but it just comes down to where, we have our own schedule, we have our own life, and the small engine industry, and I'll probably get crap for saying this, but the small engine industry is not an on-demand industry. Very few. And if you are doing on-demand, you're not only going to pay a much higher rate per hour, but then you're going to pay a large fee to even be part of the club. And even that is going to be very difficult to service because you're paying basically a tech or somebody, to be available, at the drop of a hat, overnighting parts. Most people are not going to want to pay that for a push mower. If you have a commercial business, for example, that has a bunch of Skags and X marks running and, the equipment goes down, but you have all these properties to make, to service. Well, yeah, that makes sense. And you're going to pay for that. Yeah. And that's just the name of the game. But for the residential customer, they're not going to do it. We're booked out till the end of October right now for just riding mowers, and it's a variety, and it's more than just tune-up stuff. It's, stuff that's, belts, bearings, pulleys, even having to rip engines apart. But
I have a
that's
neighbor who wants to put
just how it is.
I have a neighbor who needs a starter, and Arch will love this. It's a simplicity sort of. It's a sovereign. Okay,
Mm,
simplicity, but it's that first V twin vertical. I'm sorry, horizontal V twin that Kohler ever made back in
yep.
the like 80s. You've got to take the engine out to replace the starter. That's just the way it
Yeah.
works. And I said to
That's
him,
how it is.
he asked me to do this like 6 months ago because he
I could
uses
do
it in the winter to pull logs and things. I just
Yeah,
haven't had time.
that
I could do one better.
me too. Go ahead, Gary.
The 45 Honda 4514. So I have a very loyal customer. I've been working on his stuff for probably about 6 years now. He's got two 3813s
Wait,
and
is that
then
where the starter's behind the dashboard?
the starter is part of the mounting bracket of the engine. The mounting bracket is the starter motor.
Wow.
The motor mount is the starter motor. So God forbid that thing ever failed, you'd have to pull the motor in order to
Is that
get
a
to replace
twin?
it. It's a
Is that
two-cylinder
the water
liquid
cooled?
cooled.
Yeah, liquid
Ver-
cooled.
That's the water cooled.
That's
And
interesting. Go ahead. I
I
get the
hate the
same story.
3813s. I hate
well,
those.
I've rebuilt two of those from the frame up and the
And that guy, you
4514.
charge some real good money too, right?
Well, here's the thing. I'm supposed to get that in the middle of October, and the PTO cable clutch for the PTO clutch failed. It broke right at the lever. So thankfully Honda still makes the part. He ordered the part. He bought two of them, just one as a spare. But after like 35, actually even longer, it's probably almost as it's 1986, so it's 38 years old. It's going to be 40. In order to put that in, I snaked it from around the back of the engine, and then it goes to the PTO clutch, which is in the front. Well, where it is underneath, you can't get your fingers in there. Even if I had raccoon-like fingers to get
Yeah.
into where this thing is,
I'm so glad to hear this.
it's boxed in
Yeah.
where the cross member of the frame is. I
Yeah.
cannot get it. I can't get a tool in there or anything.
Jim, now you know where to send it.
The
Well,
only
no.
way to do this is to get this. The only way for me to replace it, to get this cable
Gotta
out,
cut
I
a
have to
hole.
remove the radiator. I
Yeah.
have to remove the clutch again, which I replaced a couple years ago, and the pressure plate behind it where this cable's hooked up to. Then I'll be able to replace it. But then I'm not done. Then I have to adjust it. I got to get the play out. I have to measure the friction material, make sure there's enough gap, because when you disengage it, it engages a brake. And then the other side of it is actually the friction material to actually spin it with the engine. It is just insanely overbuilt and engineered. There's a reason why it's lasted 35 years. They don't make machines like this anymore. But I felt so bad for the guy because I said he wanted to change
Yeah.
a $50 cable, and I have to rip apart the whole
Yeah.
front of the machine again. It's
Well,
just it's a love-hate
that's
relationship with small engines.
that's Honda for you, because I just did the same thing. It was on a Honda EX 5500, twin cylinder. The starter was bad. Someone threw it away. It's a liquid cooled engine, beautifully over engineered machine. Like someone probably paid a ton of money for this machine. But when the starter went bad, they threw it away. They actually first tried cutting it out with a Sawzall and then threw it away. So I got it. I'm like, oh, it's just a starter. How hard can this be? But the generator was enclosed like an inverter generator. The starter was part of the engine mount. And the way you're supposed to change it is to take all the tins off the side of the machine and probably lift the engine and the generator out. But you have to drain the radiator, disconnect the hoses. I mean, you have to disassemble the whole thing for a starter. So I refused to do it. And I had to take a few things off, with pry bars, just like it took me 2 hours to get the starter out. And then I'm like, well, now that I know how to do it, it should be easier to put it back in. It took 3 hours to put it back in. Only because there was one bolt I could not reach. Like you couldn't reach it. There was just no possible way to reach it.
The only way to on the 4514 to replace the timing belt and the water pump, you either pull the whole engine out or you take the whole operator station out to get behind it. And then even when you get and take the timing belt cover off, the water pump, there's a hidden bolt on the back towards the front of the engine that has the another 10 millimeter bolt that's buried so deep in. You have to
Yeah.
remove the carburetor. You have to remove the intake
Yeah.
manifold to get to it because you have to torque these all to
It's
spec. It's
it's
just, oh my God, it's such a pain.
it's
I
it's
cringe every
it
time
sounds
I get
like the same engine. It had the timing belt kind of behind the flywheel with the water
yeah,
pump.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and the charging coils are behind there. So the
Yeah.
history, since we're talking about this, is the Honda 4514s, the 4518s, the 3813s. All those machines were built by the Honda motorcycle division that were designed in the late 70s and early 80s. So
Interesting.
and the main problem that they had in the market was that they were a premium brand in the market, and they made them to like the early 90s, but they just were so overly priced in comparison to
Yeah.
where other brands that they priced themselves out of the market.
Well,
But there's
th-
such a cult following for
But
them
do you
that there's
find?
a
I find that the people I know
it's
with these Hondas don't maintain them though. They think a Honda, you
well,
just use it for 20 years and then throw it out.
no, but these things, there's a reason. The timing belts that I changed on all three of those machines after 30 some odd years, they weren't even dry rotted.
Was that
They were
date?
but
that good.
well, the crazy thing is too, like I have the Honda, it's under that sheet back there, but this machine here produces almost the same power. And to work on it, it is so simple. This machine probably cost like $200 new, back in the 80s.
What is that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a power mate.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
But the
little square body
Honda
thing.
produces almost the same amount of power. And that was probably a $4,000 machine in the mid 80s. Like it is so crazy over engineered. It even has like bearings, like you'd have in a car, replaceable bearings. I mean,
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
just top notch. You would never see a generator, portable generator built like that ever again. Like
No,
it's insane what they did.
he's got he's got the ES6500 Honda generator, which has the same exact liquid cooled twin cylinder engine as the 4514s. And the biggest problem with a lot of those machines now, you can't find parts for them. If you do find parts, you're getting them from overseas or you're buying them off a junk machine. And
Yeah.
they're just so well built. They're only now starting to have these kinds of maintenance issues that need to be done.
Yeah.
And it just, I cringe when I see them because one, they're very heavy. That 6,500 watt machine with the liquid cooled, that's over 300 some odd pounds
It's
without fuel in it.
yeah. Yeah. The one I had is listed at 380 pounds without fuel. It
Oh,
took a
it's
few
ridiculous.
attempts to get it up the ramp.
Yeah.
It's a heavy machine. And I got to say, I'm very impressed with it. But to your point, like when the guy whoever owned it originally tried replacing the starter, to even get access to the starter, he had to pull a few things out. And when he gave up
Yeah.
on the starter, he threw those things out. So
Oh
I
no.
fixed the machine. It runs fine, but now we're missing like two important parts, and I don't think I can get them. And it's like, God, why did he do that? And a lot of people do that. They try to fix it, they give up, and whatever they took off while they were trying to fix it never gets put back on because they're throwing it away. And they just throw that away separately. And then by the time I
Hard to
get it,
find.
it's
Yeah.
another $500 to replace the other parts that are missing, if you can even find them.
Hey, we've had this conversation before. James's favorite topic, power factor.
Oh God. That's something that Gary's maybe more qualified, but how do you improve power factor?
Well,
We could
capacitor
add
banks,
pure
right? Isn't that
resistance.
those capacitors you find in your circuit breaker box? Like, what are these here for?
Yeah, I'm not you got to watch Big Clive, but no,
Yeah.
power factor has more to do with like when the correlation of like when current is drawn versus the peak of the sine wave. And
Isn't it filtering though? Isn't it just filtering?
it's not filtering.
Gary, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you. But it's there are devices like switch mode power supplies that don't use the current in sync with the power grid. And a lot of it has to do with capacitors and how they work. But yeah, I don't know enough about power
no,
factor
Gary
to
had talked
answer
about
that.
it one time, but Gary, we didn't catch anything you said in the last minute.
I know. Now we hear static.
Background.
Gary's computer. Oh my god.
Can you guys hear me now?
Nope.
We hear you, but there's a lot of static.
Way too
Now
much
we don't
static.
hear you. Now static.
Nope, too much. Try it again. Nope.
It's all that fancy equipment.
I was gonna say.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Yeah, no sound though.
No, I heard him.
Oh, did you?
Oh, don't hear him now.
No. Yeah, when you came out, it sounded like he unplugged the ground from your ear.
No, I think my lapel just died. But you probably hear me a little better now.
Yeah.
Hey, that was pretty good though, considering 2 hours. But I'm gonna have to change my review of this because I just got it for nothing.
I know you just said you love the. Yeah, but 2 hours isn't bad for that. Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's not great.
Yeah.
No, it's not great. It really isn't. I was hoping for 4 hours, but
power factor.
That's why I use this to record with, because the battery actually lasts.
Yeah. Sorry about the static, guys. But yeah, no. So power factor, yeah. So it's even I can't really articulate it as well, but there's two concepts: real power, like power of what actually, and apparent power, and then that the difference between the two is the power factor. So a purely resistive load, like on a heater, for example, is going to have a power factor of 1. But then if you have a non-linear power supply, like a switch bulb, where it's pulsing, so many times per second, and it's only powering 50% of the time, then your power factor is going to be 5 or 0.5. Just for rough and simple example. And yeah, you could put more capacitance into the circuit to improve the power factor so that you don't get charged. You get charged off of the apparent power, not the real power. That's why you see capacitors inside a box or next to your circuit breaker with a double pole 20, for example. That's if you have a lot of motors in your house, well, you put those big capacitors in there not only as a surge supply, but also as a way to correct the power factor so it's closer to 1 as possible.
But he's saying adding resistance. You're adding capacitance, though, right?
I'm saying adding capacitance. Adding pure resistance could also help on a conventional generator to stabilize an AVR. If there's a constant load, if there's a constant resistive load, well, that actually helps with THD a little bit, because not only is it stabilizing the AVR, so it's always constantly powering that load, but then it will stabilize, making sure that it dampens out those oscillations in the speed and also the THD, but you at the deficit of using up your available capacity, for example. But that's about my limitation of that understanding. I mean, we're getting into very large kilowatt size generators and 3-phase power. That's something well beyond what I'm capable of understanding even.
All right, we're coming up on 2 hours. I know I got a few things I got to do before I hit this bed. Any other questions out there? Otherwise, we'll call it a night. It was good. We had a lot of questions answered time. It's pretty good. And we averaged around 50 people all the time, if not more. I think we got as high as 70 at one point. So it was a good night. But thanks to Gary and thanks to James for coming up. And like I said, we try and do it maybe once a month, depending, and try and answer all the questions, and we'll go from there. But thanks to everyone that showed up. Thanks for all the questions that got asked. Anyone watching this later in the day or later in the week or whatever, ask the questions, put it in the comments. We will get together between us and answer somehow, some way. We will get to you. So don't think that if you didn't make the live, you're not going to get anything answered. We will do it. So say goodnight to everybody. Thanks again, guys. We will talk to you soon.
See you guys.
See ya.